this time.
And there are two reasons that I have been a Young Life leader for 12 years now. The first one is because when I was a junior in high school, a Young Life leader walked into my cafeteria, sat down at my table, and she knew my name. And it changed my life forever because of my relationship with her. Not because of club or any of the things, but because of my relationship with her. I met Jesus, and it changed me, it changed my family. For generations to come, I truly believe that. And the second reason is because I could be here all day. I know I only have a few minutes, but I could tell you story after story of young people meeting Jesus and their lives forever being changed. And so I still do it. So maybe you're like, what is Young Life? The mission of Young Life is to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. That is our mission locally in Crittenden County, but that's Young Life's mission all over the world. Young Life is in almost every country. Um, we function locally, but we are a mission that's going out all over the world. So Young Life got its start in 1941. There was a youth pastor that got hired at this church, and he shows up for his first day of work and says, Pastor, what do you want me to do today? And he says, hey, I've got this place covered. I need you to go across the street to the high school and introduce those kids to Jesus because they're never going to set foot in my church. And that's how Young Life got its start. Our hope is that a kid who would never come to church on a Sunday morning, that we would be able to pull them in and introduce them to Jesus. But don't get me wrong, Young Life is not just for that furthest out kid. Young Life is for every kid, church background or not. Young Life is for every kid, no matter their race, ethnicity, their culture. Young Life is for every kid, no matter their ability or disability. When a kid shows up, when we get to know them, we want to roll out the red carpet for every kid. So we get asked the question a lot, how do you do it? After all these years, Young Life is still growing and thriving. What's your strategy? What are you doing that's working? And y'all, it's simple. We don't have a strategy. We looked right here. We looked at the life of Christ and we do what he did. My favorite story of how we do what we do is in John 4. You may know the story. Jesus, him and his disciples, they're going somewhere, and there's a pretty direct route they could go from point A to point B. And he decides no. It says he has to go through Samaria. It's the long way around town. And he goes and he encounters a woman, which is a little odd because he's a man and she's a woman. They shouldn't be talking. But he has this encounter with her. She's a Samaritan and he's a Jew. They shouldn't be talking. She is a sinner. She has a list a mile long that the whole town knows about. He is the perfect Son of God. They should not be talking. But Jesus went out of his way to meet her where she was, and her life was forever changed because of this encounter with Jesus. And as Young Life leaders, that's what we do. It's as simple as that. We go out of our way to meet high school kids where they are. And here's some exciting news to meet junior high kids where they are. Just this month, we started a new ministry, so we're no longer just high school, junior high and high school, so 7th through 12th grade. So the main thing that Young Life is, and we saw this amplified in the midst of COVID when we weren't able to meet in groups, is we call it contact work, but it's just the relationship piece. It is adults who care showing up in the lives of high school kids, in the lunchroom, at their practices, at their games, whatever that is. And then we invite them in to something called Young Life Club. And most of the time they come because they trust us, they know us, we've earned the right to be heard in their life. And Young Life Club is, man, y'all, it's a party with a purpose. It's wild. Kids just get to be kids for an hour out of the week, hour and a half. On Monday nights, they come, we eat pizza, we play games, they laugh because at Young Life, we believe that humor is holy. Humor should not be at the expense of anyone. We get to laugh and build each other up and celebrate kids in hopes that the gospel would then penetrate and that they would start a relationship with Jesus. And then we also get to do this thing called camp in the summer. Y'all know summer camp, but this is like above and beyond probably the summer camp that you grew up going to. It's the nicest camp you'll ever go to, but my favorite part has nothing to do with camp. It's the fact that a Young Life leader knows a student at home. They get on a bus, they ride 8 hours. When they get to camp, they're sleeping in bunk beds, they're doing camp with them, and then they're coming home. So when a kid hears about this love and exciting news of Jesus at camp, and they're questioning, could this be true? Does God really love me? A Young Life leader then comes home with them and gets to process that truth with them for the long haul. That's a real quick glance of what we do. And I can't not tell you a story. I told you I could tell you stories, but I have to tell you a story. I texted my friend Quay last night and asked if it was okay if I shared. So I met Quay in 2012. She was one of my first ever Young Life girls. And this just explains Quay. Like the room is chaotic and crazy, and Quay is sitting there singing, I've got the magic. And just like in her own world, that is Quay. And I take her, so I get to know her. She goes to club with me, and then I take her to camp, y'all. And Young Life Camp is for everybody, but I don't know if it was for Quay. We were there an hour, and she had gotten her shoes dirty, and she was ready to fight me because her shoes were dirty. And like the area director had to come and sit us down and have this conversation and like mediate because she was so mad. But fast forward a few days, Quay meets Jesus at camp, and she is radically changed. She's a new person. She goes home on fire for the Lord. Fast forward 10 years or so, and Quay is not necessarily following Jesus anymore. She has 4 kids. Life has been really hard. I live here. She lives in Knoxville, but we keep up. And then it was in December-ish last year, she gets shot in a drive-by shooting. And I'm getting all these messages. Quay's not going to make it. Quay's not going to make it. Y'all, I'm heartbroken. She is my Young Life girl forever. But God, she made it. And Quay had been out of a coma for a few days. She couldn't talk because her mouth is wired shut. And she sends me a message, and she said, God saved me the first time at Young Life Camp with you. And God saved me again. And I'm going to raise my kids to know him. And Quay gets baptized. Her kids get baptized. And her life is dramatically different. I texted her last night and asked if I could share. And I said, what do you want them to know about Young Life? And she said, Young Life gave me a different view of life. Young Life was another side to life for me, my escape from the real world. Young Life was my beginning to God. And it is my greatest privilege to get to train leaders, to walk in the lives of kids, to get to do this in Crittenden County. And our hope is we are just for a short period of time in a kid's life. We hope that we introduce them to Jesus and they accept that. But then what's next? We hope to be able to hand them to a local church where they would continue to grow and be discipled and have this family of believers who love them. So I want to invite y'all to our Young Life Banquet. It's on March the 6th. It's our big fundraiser, but it's also just an interest night. If you're interested in being a volunteer in some way on the committee or a Young Life leader in some other capacity, you want to hear more, that would be a great night to come and listen. Pastor Parham has some tickets. I have some tickets. It's on March 6th. Thank you all.
Amen. Amen. And so I had a couple of questions. We're acting out. It's a couple of questions I wanted to ask because there may be somebody that is watching that may be wondering. And so how we met. This is how we met. I'm gonna have to kind of step off and unspeak. So this is how we met. We have a mutual friend that I served in the military. So we may have to step outside. If you step to the left, all right, that way. So we have a mutual friend in the military that served, and as I was a chaplain, and she come to me and she said, Pastor Parham, I don't remember exactly which way, and she says, man, we doing things in our youth and our community in your area, and would you be interested to come to one of our sessions? I said, yeah, man, a thing that's gonna be a blessing to community and kids. I mean, we gotta see more about our children. And so I went and we've met a few times. I met in their homes along with other individuals as well. With the young lady in the back there, they invited us into their homes and we talked a plan. The churches went to one banquet already while I was serving in the military. The church went to the banquet, and so that's how a little bit of history of how we all connected is from my military side. The young lady approached me about would I be interested in helping them with youth in our community. So with that being so, quick questions, and we're going to move forward. Do you help churches identify youth that need church homes?
I think so, yes. We hope to go after that furthest out kid that would never maybe step foot in a church. And once they meet Jesus, we would love to hand those kids off to a church that says, hey, we love you, care for you, let's disciple.
Good. So I know that you go to all the schools, many of the schools here. So you have access sometimes where churches don't always have the access to be able to have the freeway to go into schools and to mentor children. And so that's a great avenue. With that, you have a diversified group. So I understand that when you speak that you're not only just it's white, it's black, it's Hispanic, it's a whosoever it is. And so that's one of the reasons the young lady approached me because they have a lot of African Americans and I can invite, they got a good thing going, but we need more African American presence.
Absolutely.
We got to have African American children. Look like we will have African American presence along with the children. And so that's what prompts them to, part of the why they approach me is that, hey, we're dealing with people, with some of your children. And we would like to, you'll be a part to help relate. Am I in the ballpark?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We would love for our volunteer team to look like the kids we serve.
All right, so it's not that they're not trying to get kids. They already have kids, and they're asking for support of what these kids we already have. We're the church. We're lacking a small group of kids, needing kids. So it sounds like an ideal match.
Absolutely.
Amen. So number two, can you walk alongside churches that help build youth departments?
Yeah, so I think we're really good at training people. I think we're sort of at capacity in the way that we love our students, but we love to come alongside churches and say, hey, here's what's working. Let us help you in that capacity. So
Amen. Amen. And so this is a larger, like she said earlier, this organization is larger just in Creighton County. This is a worldwide organization. You can Google it and Google it and read more about them in the World Wide Web. Also, now we did talk about number three. Can churches host meeting for you all?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually love to be in a place that's not a church for the fact that sometimes the kids reaching don't feel comfortable coming to a church. But right now we're meeting at a church that has rented a building that's sort of it doesn't look like it's a part of a church. And so that's where we have club currently. But churches it would be a great way to host fundraisers or campaigners, which is when we do Bible study with kids. So there are definitely some aspects there that churches could help with.
And so with that in mind, and so someone said, well, why not the church? Why not the church? Because when you start going to the world, into not necessarily so much the secular, but when you're trying to deal with children and parents, parents now are very touchy about bringing my kids to a church. So we have to not only help bless the children, but bless their parents also, because their mind ain't. The church is not the place I go get help. We just bottom line, we live in that time now that people doesn't think like that, and so to not to be trying to sway one side to another, and to make sure the resource help that comes financially. That sometimes you not to, but that's where they can't always launch it in a church. But she's reaching out to churches to say, look, but we have these kids available. Hint, hint. You understand? And with that. I asked the question, if your organization is invited to an event, can the children display gifts and talents to an audience?
The answer to that is sort of. We hope, as Young Life, we don't necessarily have a performance or anything like that, but our hope would be that we could hand our kids to you. And then if you have a youth choir or something of that sort, that they would be able to be a part of that.
All right, sounds good. We're looking for more youth. Because, man, youth is life. If I can just get youth, they don't have to be a member just running through the church. To me, that's life in your church. Youth signifies life. Just in general talk. When somebody say, I'm a juvenile or my younger years, they're talking about the life of
I'm going to tell you all an encouraging story real quick. Last week, our leaders get together before club to pray an hour early. Y'all, kids started showing up so much, we had to go hide in the closet to pray. They just kept showing up early, and we're like, where are they all coming from? I had to call and order another thing of pizza because we didn't have enough. It was awesome.
So it's wonderful. And they got that I'm very excited to hear some of the ways that you're reaching out in this modern day community. generating kids. Now, she did say that we could be, as a church, to get that youth coming to the church and feel that zeal of having babies and youth and teenagers moving through the church, that we could be a host site sometime to where they're going to have an event. They could have their event. They don't like, they're most accustomed outside, but a church can host a pizza party or a movie party and invite them to it, and which would get youth moving out in through our church. If you look around here now, I think all of us agree that we need to do something. Amen. And so, number 5, what are your immediate needs, and how can churches help?
Our first immediate need is volunteers. We just need people who are willing to volunteer their time, whether in the adult capacity where they're helping fundraise, care for leaders, stuff like that, or being a volunteer leader, meaning you're working one-on-one with students. And then our second thing, and this feels so cliche, but we need money. Financially, things are really tight this year. I think everybody is feeling that, and Young Life especially is feeling that. So that's where our banquet comes into play. Hopefully on March 6th, we're going to be able to raise a big portion of our budget. We not only have to raise our budget, but it is very expensive to send a kid to camp. Probably more expensive than it ever has been. So we'll start that campaign soon of raising funds for kids to go to camp, because we don't ever let money stop a kid from going.
So this is a Christian organization trying to help all kids, not just certain groups, all kids, to see Christ in a better way. And I'm just a believer, when you get to heaven at the end of the day, ain't gonna be a black heaven, white heaven, Hispanic, all of us is gonna be there. Amen. And so, which is Black History Month, I think one of the things Dr. Martin Luther King fought for is that we all could come together in a unified group. The dream was all people working together, making a difference in our community. I believe that was the dream. So thank you so much.